More than 100 million people are expected to vote tomorrow in Indonesia's regional elections. It's a poll made more complex than usual by the pandemic, and there are fears the polls could spread the virus. Indonesia is the hardest hit country in Southeast Asia, with more than 500,000 infections. Saiful Ismail joins us live from Solo City in central Java. Saiful, holding the large-scale polls in the middle of a coronavirus pandemic, is this a massive gamble for President Joko Widodo?
Well, first of all, Steve, I'm actually at the polling station that will be used by voters to cast their ballots on Wednesday. The regional elections are a gamble for Mr. Widodo. The elections were earlier scheduled to be held in September, but it was postponed to December because the COVID-19 numbers were surging. But we are well into December and COVID-19 numbers in Indonesia still have not come down. Mr. Widodo had said the elections have to go on because the pandemic shows no signs of letting up. The Indonesian government said the elections must be held in order to guarantee the constitutional rights of the people and the right to vote and to be elected. It cannot wait until the pandemic is over because no country can predict the end of the pandemic. Thus, the regional elections must be held under strict health protocols to ensure that they are safe and democratic. Now, a number of prominent figures in the country disagreed with that decision. Among them is former Vice President Yusuf Kala, who said, forcing something that clearly endangers the lives of citizens is not only reckless, but also fatal. Now, Indonesia has been struggling to cope with the pandemic. The country announced its first cases of COVID-19 on 2nd of March, and more than 9 months after, it's still on the first wave of the pandemic. It has not managed to flatten the curve. Today alone, Indonesia reported more than 5,200 fresh COVID-19 cases and 133 deaths.
Saiful, amid those figures you've just mentioned, what then are the measures in place to make sure voting is safe?
Well, Jill, extra logistics like personal protective equipment for poll workers have been sent to the voting centres together with other items like masks, disposable gloves to ensure that voters can come to the polling stations and cast their ballots safely. Now, the General Elections Commission has also increased the number of polling stations to prevent overcrowding. In Solo, there are 215 more polling stations, which is an increase of about 20%. In addition, voters have been given a schedule of what time to come to the polling stations. Voters have been advised to stick to that time allocated. This is to spread out the number of voters coming to the polling stations. Now, after the voters have cast their ballots, poll workers will drip indelible ink on their finger instead of dipping it inside the ink bottle as in previous elections. Now, all of the poll workers had earlier taken COVID-19 tests to ensure a clean bill of health. Now, with all the health measures in place, the General Elections Commission hopes to record a 77.5% voter turnout. Authorities in Solo said they are not worried about the conditions at the polling stations because it can be controlled. What authorities are concerned about is what happens before voters come to the polling stations and after they leave the polling stations. That is something beyond their control. Another point to worry about is when the results are out. There's a concern that supporters of the winning candidate may celebrate in large crowds, and this could become another potential COVID-19 cluster.
Saiful Ismail is in central Jakarta. Thank you for that.